You know, I'm getting to that point where I can't tell if I'm looking at a real animal or a Pokemon. Like, am I dreaming? Am I playing too much Pokemon Go? Is that a Pokemon or is it just some bird? But can you blame me? Game Freak made Starly, and it's literally just a bird. It's mainly dark gray-brown with a paler belly and a whitish band across the rump. Its head is blackish, with whitish cheeks and a whitish forehead. There is a white border on the tail and white markings on the secondary wing feathers. The legs are pale orange, and the bill is orange with a black tip. Adult females are similar to the males, but paler and duller.
Oi, wait! Starly's gender difference is its forehead, not its whole color!
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you think I was still talking about Starly? No. This is the Wikipedia page for the white-cheeked starling, a species of bird found across Japan, which is where its home region, Sinnoh, is based. So if you didn't believe me before, it's literally just a bird. Even beyond appearance, every Pokédex entry they have mentions how the species flocks together in large numbers. Every single one. The only exceptions to this rule are their black and white entries, and that's because they use the word group instead of flock. Like, there's no other way to say it. Starly and Staravia are just boring. The only defining characteristic the starling doesn't have is the tuft of feathers on the top of their heads, though the crest of the northern lapwing does provide a suitable explanation for the feature, though the birds aren't closely related at all in taxonomy or geolocation, so there's not much of a biological reason for this connection other than it looks cool. Culturally, however, Starly
It's just a baby!
which are depicted with a single curly hair atop their head in cartoons and anime alike. It's a decently common style for real babies too. When it evolves, this curly baby hair becomes reminiscent of an ahoge. Not an ahegao, I keep almost saying that. An ahoge. It's the exaggerated cowlicks that you often see on anime and manga characters. It's also known as idiot hair. This would especially fit for Staravia, as it's in that edgy, awkward teen phase, most often depicted by anime protagonists. It's still not fully grown up though, and so it doesn't have its mother's permission to dye its hair or grow it out as long as it really wants. Ugh. And that's pretty much it for these two. There's pretty much nothing else to these designs, which is honestly a shame. There's like dozens of starling species out there, many of which are much more colorful and extravagant. Like, take the common starling. It's freaking called the common starling, and yet it has these crazy metallic green and purple feathers in its breeding plumage anyway. This looks way more like a Pokemon than Starly does. And even the white dots it has look like stars in the night sky. Like, how can you make a Pokemon with star in the name and not give it stars all over its design? I mean, technically Staravia does have an upside-down star pattern on its face. But hey, original variant is always on the table. We've seen regular Starly in the Scarlet and Violet trailers, but who's to say it won't evolve into a regional variant based on the starlings found on the Iberian Peninsula, like the spotless starling. Yeah, make the edgelord bird even edgier. Forget emo, it's gothic time. Dark, like a moonless night. The only source of light are the dim stars. And probably a flashlight. Staraptor. No. Known as the Raptor Pokemon, it has a savage nature and will courageously challenge foes that are much larger. It never stops attacking, even if injured. Don't mess with this one. While design-wise, it's still almost entirely based on the white-cheeked starling, now it's mixing in some behaviors from larger birds, such as eagles, hawks, and falcons, all of which are classified as raptors, or birds of prey. Interestingly though, in the wild, raptors are starlings' biggest predators. So to protect the flock it's been so dependent on its entire life, Staraptor evolved to literally become the predator of the predator. In terms of appearance, Staraptor's white tail feathers have finally become darker tipped, a phenomenon consistent with aging starlings. But that's pretty much it. Like, just like its pre-evolution, it's just like a bird again. Alright. Enough with that. Oh, there is no fixing this. Oh gosh. It's still just a bird, but at least it's a bird with some hair now. The changeable hawk eagle's crest is a pretty good match for Staraptor, especially how it appears blowing in the wind. Sure, it's not an exact match, but considering this eagle, or hawk? Yep, it's an eagle. This is the closest we're going to get to an emo cut in the natural world. But let's go back to that Pokédex entry real quick. It will courageously challenge foes that are much larger. It never stops attacking. Have you ever seen small birds attacking bigger birds or other land-based predators? They are bravely, and perhaps a bit stupidly, defending their nests by doing this, keeping the dangerous predators away from their helpless babies. This behavior may be what inspired this part of the deck's entry, which is fun. Now, as for cultural inspirations, there's a lot here that you probably wouldn't have noticed at first. For instance, Hokkaido, of course, is the region of Japan that inspired Sinnoh's creation, and its flag was used as a basis to design Staraptor's color scheme. Well, kinda. The flag itself is fairly simple. A 7-point red star with a white outline on a blue background. Staraptor's head could be seen as a 7-pointed star if you count the beak as one of the points. And the red and blue of the flag are represented by the normal and shiny variants, hair dye. Of course, red and blue isn't an incredibly uncommon color scheme, so these connections could just be a coincidence, but the meaning behind these colors, now we're getting somewhere. In the context of this flag, blue represents the sky, where birds fly, and red symbolizes the people's energy. The sky needs no explanation, where birds fly. But when you consider that Staraptor is a bird who grew up to hunt a natural predator of starlies to protect the flock, it's safe to say that they have the energy of the people behind them. But these connections don't just stop at a flag. Did you notice Staraptor's head looks somewhat like a samurai's helmet? Yeah, it closely resembles the helmet of Uesugi Kenshin. Almost all samurai helmets don a head ornament, and in this case, his was shaped like a sun and a crescent moon atop each other, accounting for the devil horn and white circle motif on the Pokemon's forehead. But the helmet isn't the only samurai element of the bird, oh no. Its haircut is based on the chonmage style, a common haircut worn by samurais during the Edo period of Japan. Men would shave the top of their head and put their remaining hair into a top knot that sat atop their scalp, making it easier to look really stupid, but also to wear helmets in combat. That was probably the main thing. Is it okay for me to just call that hairstyle stupid? 'Cause like, this might be offensive. I look like I'm from 2003, it's fine. And you know what? That white circle we originally attributed to a sun does somewhat look like a bald spot under this context, right? And the other two even have this spot as well. And the spot's bigger on the males, which in this context makes perfect sense. It's based on men's fashion, purposefully making themselves balder, giving them bald spots. Though their hair isn't combed down like the chonmage, no. Instead, the chosen mage hairstyle is pretty fitting for the two pre-evolutions. The style was popular with the teens in the Edo period and looked pretty similar to the chonmage hairstyle with its shaved front, long back look. But the main difference is instead of the hair being folded over the scalp in this top knot, the unshaven hair is pointed straight upwards, held in place using a bamboo T-whisk, which is where the style gets its name in the first place. So there's some really neat stuff when you break down all these walls. But why the samurai connection in the first place? Well, this actually isn't even the first regional bird with some samurai elements in its design. The previous generation's Swellow is the whole reason the move Aerial Ace exists. And at the time, it was pretty much a signature move. The only other Pokemon to learn it naturally was Spearow, another swallow, the kind of bird that they all are. And that's because in Japanese, the move's name is Swallow Return, which is based on a samurai fighting technique called Turning Swallow Cut, due to the sword moving similarly to how swallows attack. So this time, they just went even deeper into birds equals samurai, huh? Not a difficult connection to make either, what with Takagari and all. Takagari is the practice of Japanese falconry. It was a sacred practice. Getting so many of these hairs in my throat. It was a sacred practice with nobles during the Edo period, where they could train birds of prey like eagles and hawks to hunt smaller animals for sport. The practice was especially popular with samurais during wartime, as they provided a secondary food source and a form of entertainment for the soldiers, as there's not really much else you can do during this time period in combat. And again, we definitely know Staraptor hunts smaller Pokemon, so the connection here is pretty strong. I guess Staraptor isn't as boring as I thought, but the other two, yeah, they're just dumb looking stupid birds based on boring birds. What do you expect from the 16th normal flying type? I am so glad they started giving regional birds other type variations after 2 more generations of this. Don't you assault me! That's illegal! Just make sure to use your sparrow shoot! It's fine. But do you sparrow shoot? Do you get it?